So yeah, side order is fine. You know, a lot of people were excited for this DLC. Quite a few of them like both roguelikes and Splatoon. Yada yada, lore, lesbian squids, all that stuff. But if you know me, I'm in this for the gameplay. Anyways, I'm personally a fan of roguelikes. Okay, I might have a small problem. I can quit anytime. But right now, we have the funny squid game. Now, despite all that, this DLC is really good. In fact, I'd say it's worth it as a standalone game. I mean, it basically is at this price. All in all, great experience. What makes it good? Well, when talking about gameplay, it has great movement, control, weapon variety. You already know that. That's just basic Splatoon gameplay. But when looking at the elements for this game, we can look at its aspects that separate it from the main Splatoon game. Holy fuck, it's a Splatoon roguelike. Going to the most basic aspects of what a roguelike is, it's a procedurally generated game with permadeath mechanics. Basically the type of game Masochists like. A game in which you have to try over and over again, with possibly no hope of improvements other than your own skill. If you just came in, it might sound like I'm talking about League of Legends, or any other competitive multiplayer game, including Splatoon. And that's exactly why it works so well. The overlap of people who enjoyed roguelikes have a strong disposition to players who like multiplayer competitive games. Games with a focus of skill and a little bit of luck. Now, Side Order is what I like to call a light roguelike, not to be confused with a roguelite. Well, I guess it's a roguelike, so that would be a light roguelike. Yes, I'm adding another modifier to the rogue genre. If you have a problem with that, feel free to comment your grievances. Either way, that's to say, the elements of luck in most roguelikes are significantly more. And here, it's, well, light. The DLC has a strong emphasis on player skill above everything else. Unlike, say, Binding of Isaac, which does not. From here on, we have major spoilers for the DLC. If you haven't played it yet, I recommend clicking away now. So after beating the tutorial, turns out the trailers were in fact lying the entire time. Marina is a major player in the DLC, basically acting as the mirror in Hades, for example, giving permanent upgrades that can make runs much easier. Now, I'm not sure if I got lucky or if it was the intended experience, but I managed to beat the run within the first 3 runs. I don't recommend doing this. Once you beat the game once, you get pearls after only completing a run, not by just participating. Not a design decision I agree with, but I get it. If you can beat it once, it gives you an incentive to actually attempt to beat the game repeatedly. Either way, once you beat the game, you're asked to beat the game with every single available weapon. A really fun experience that was, in my opinion, executed flawlessly. Every weapon can get 3 keys a single time. The only way to get these keys is to be beating the 3 bosses per run. We will come back to this. The keys are the most important resource you'll be going for, unlocking lore and new weapons to try out. Heavily encourages new weapon use and new play styles, as once you beat a run with a weapon, there's really no reason to use it again other than, well, just for fun. Giving a player multiple ways to play is great, but for every aspiring game developer watching, if your alternative modes of playing give no benefit to the player will almost always never choose them. Now, this game is great. As far as I'm aware, it's one of the only 2 AAA roguelikes I'm aware of. But this game is not perfect. One is the palettes, a great way to group together different upgrades. Also, very boring. Each palette adds a small buff. If you collect enough of a palette set, you get a major buff. Some of these give new abilities. There's no strategy when it comes to picking them, though. I guarantee this will be the thought when coming across a new group of abilities. Which one of these will be good? Well, homing will be useful, but I'm 3/5 of the way through distant damage, so I should pick that instead. As someone looking at this through the perspective of new players, it makes sense. It manages to trick the strategy center of the brain to believe it's making a smarter decision than it is. As someone who has spent more than 2 hours with the game, this is boring. This isn't Enter the Gungeon or Binding of Isaac. When I see a good item there, I get excited. You don't get excited when you see... Even if this is game-breaking, I just can't bring myself to care about the color purple. Now, when going through the game, you'll fight 3 bosses, one of them being the final boss you'll fight every single run. Now, the other 2 bosses will be randomly picked from a pool. Now, I want you to guess how many unique non-final bosses there are. If you guessed anything more than 3, you're wrong. And no, I don't mean 3 per boss pool. There's 1 boss pool. If you beat the entire game once, congratulations, you have seen a majority of the boss content. This is insane to me as a roguelike. Like, in a serious way. The only time I've ever seen such a little boss variety is maybe Spelunky, but the challenge there almost exclusively comes from the world. Splatoon has a much greater emphasis on combat, so I'd expect at least more than 3 bosses. Now, in the end of the day, 3 bosses would not be the end of the world. If one of them was in a goddamn Inkling fight. You know, the type of fight you would encounter multiple times in all 3 story modes. In a game that includes a harder fight, including Inklings. I've not once died in this fight. I would be shocked if anyone has ever died here on accident. It is absurd that out of 3 of the bosses, only 2 of them are remotely creative. It's strange to say, but this game might honestly be better without this boss. The other bosses are fun, though. Predictable enough to learn, but unpredictable enough where you won't always win. Finally, there really is no challenge mode like many other roguelikes. The only real challenge is an ability that gives you more pearls, the less abilities you have. Which, might I add, is only available after beating the game once, at the point in which it is incredibly difficult to get pearls. But don't worry, you'll still get a few pearls when reaching a certain point in the run, except the multiplier does not affect these pearls. Why? What is the point of this ability? It is almost required to get abilities to finish the game, so the least you could do is reward the players for trying. Either way, it's a really good game, definitely in the top 10 of the year, even if it's just DLC, a really great roguelike experience. While I feel it's not made for those experienced with the genre, I 100% would recommend for people wanting to step into the genre.